Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another channel member sponsored video. Yes, it's been a little bit since one of these. My channel members are absolutely delightful in putting up with me. I think the last time I did a poll for something else, so it wasn't a sponsored video. But if you don't know, I have channel memberships. They're always in the link below in the description to find out more, but one of the tiers, Romantic Renegade and above, you get to help vote on a video that I film. They've also been very patient because I put up the poll for this video, prepared the video, and then I was sick last week, so I didn't film it and it took me a while, but that's the good part of prepping videos, is it's ready to go. So this video, if you can tell by the title, is called Scarred Heroines, and this one won by, it was winning by a landslide, but then it got really close. Also, I'm wearing this bright red sweater that is my Mafia Romance Readathon sweater. I created merch for that this year, so you can check that out down below if you're interested in that. Also my awesome mug, which is right here. So in the same way that I did a Wounded Heroes recommendation, some people asked me to do a Scarred Heroine. So the thing is that I take scarred / wounded in a few different ways, again, in the same way that I did for my heroes. So this isn't going to just be heroines who have physical things going on. In fact, I've done a video before that is characters with disabilities, where that has more of like actual, disabilities that heroines have. This one is going to be, yes, there are some who have physical scars, but it's usually going to be more mental. It's going to be more wounded, PTSD, or has trauma in certain ways. So just want to put that out there. But yeah, I'm very excited to do this. So let's start with some historicals that I have on here. And, I have to have one of my all-time favorite Lisa Kleypas, and that is, again, The Magic. This book is considered 0.5 in the Wallflower series. You can read it after the Wallflower series or before, but it technically takes place before, and it is about Westcliffe's sisters, Lady Aline and totally forgot the sister's name, Olivia, but it mostly focuses on Aline and McKenna, who they were childhood lovers. Like, they had been friends and they were starting to have more happen, but she is a daughter of the Lord and he was a stable hand, and when her father found out, he threatened John and made it so he had to leave. And around the same time that happened to him, there is a horrible accident that happens to Aline, and it leaves her scarred in certain places below her waist, and she's very ashamed of this. And there are some criticisms that are thrown at her because she is still quote unquote beautiful in her face and anything that anyone would see, but to me, that's just bullshit, because whether you're scarred or you have trauma, that is an internal thing. It's not always something you see on the outside. And for her, it's something that weighs on her so much, and she feels like it was a punishment or something that she deserved for the way that she treated McKenna, because to get him to leave so that he won't be hurt by her father, she lies to him and says that she was just using him. And so it has been, I think, like, how many years later, he's returned and now he wants to get revenge. And Aline has missed him so much that she's willing to let him have revenge on her just so she can spend some time with him. And I love this book. This book is so many things to me. And again, it does have a subplot going on where we get to see the romance for her sister Olivia as well. And she falls in love with John's business partner, who is an alcoholic at the time. And that really touches me. I know for a lot of people, they're like, there's too much time spent on the side story, or I wish the side story had more of a story. And like, to me, it was just enough. Like, Olivia, she is much more knows what she wants and knows what she's expecting out of a relationship. And so she doesn't need as much time as Aline does to come to terms with what's going on. But whatever, people will have their feelings about what they will. But I highly recommend this book. I've been recommending this book for years at this point, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. Then I have Highlander Most Wanted by Maya Banks. This is actually the book that comes after Never Seduce a Scot. Now, not a lot of people get to this book because they read Never Seduce a Scot, which is a fabulous book, and then they are like done. They're done with it. So this book is about Genevieve McInnes, who, if you've read Never Seduce a Scot, she has been held captive in McHugh Keep for a very long time. She's been a captive of the Lord's son who's there. She's been abused and raped and mistreated by him. And at the end of the last book, the Montgomerys come in and they stop all of that. And she is the reason that the Montgomerys were able to come there and rescue everybody. But she had to sink to some pretty low depths to make sure that that happened. And so she is reviled by the people who live in McHugh Keep because they saw her as the mistress, literally as like a mistress to this man and as a harlot, even though none of that was her choice. And then she is seen by Bowen Montgomery, who is Graham's brother, who decides to take over cleaning up everything that's been going on, as an enemy in certain ways as well, which I don't want to spoil. There's a lot of trauma that Genevieve has been through, and she has had to use her wits and her body for everything she has, and she just is kind of attacked on all fronts. She's never seen for herself. She's always seen as disposable or as being conniving or all these things, and she really just wants to live in peace. And yeah, this book really touched me. This was a very moving story for me, and one that is often overlooked. Then another historical I have to share is The Highlander by Kerrigan Byrne. This is book 3 in her Victorian Rebels series. This book is about Liam Mackenzie, who is a laird of Clan Mackenzie, and he has some children that need a governess. And then we have Miss Philomena, who is kind of undercover, and some of our other Victorian rebels, in the beginning of this book, they rescue her from a insane asylum where she was put into by her family, I believe it is, because they want to get her out of the way. And so she's been being kind of tortured and abused at this mental asylum. And in the beginning of this book, she gets rescued from it, but she needs to be undercover because if anyone finds out who she is, she could be taken back because she's a woman with no rights. So the Victorian rebels, they get her undercover as a governess for Liam Mackenzie's children. So she's English, she's Scottish, it's going to be great, but she has obviously a lot of trauma from being treated that way and a lot of secrets that she's keeping from Liam, who the more and more intrigued he gets by his children's governess, the more he wants to know those secrets. So I really enjoy this. Not a lot of people continue on in the Victorian Rebels. They generally read like the Highwayman and maybe the Hunter, and they don't continue on. And I think there are some great books in the second half of this series particularly. So love this one. And then one last historical one I want to recommend is actually When the Duke Was Wicked by Lorraine Heath. This one actually does have a scarred heroine. And I'll tell you how. But first I'll tell you the tropes in this book. So this one is, we have a hero who is a widower, and we have a heroine who has been like a family friend for many years, and she is supposed to be making her she's trying to find a husband. Is that what she's doing? It's been a while since I read this one, and the reason it's on this list is why I'm going to tell you. But I read this one. I haven't actually finished this series, which is interesting. But anyway, this is one where they end up being kind of friends with benefits, but he doesn't think that he can love anyone again. So he's being kind of closed-minded to the fact that he could be happy with this woman in a second chance romance, But she actually had, she had a breast cancer. And there was this physician who was very ahead of his time that suggested a mastectomy. And I think it was a double mastectomy. I'm not sure. But this was very risky at the time that it happened. But this is a heroine who, like, she is missing parts of herself to hopefully have saved her from a cancer, basically. You know, it's used in different words, but obviously Lorraine Heath did a lot of research. She will have very unique plots in a lot of her books because she really dives deep into them to find out these things. But this is a heroine that is scarred from an illness, and she was willing to risk losing, you know, her womanhood in a lot of ways to live. And so she now has this second chance at life, and there's this hero that she is in love with who he doesn't really want a second chance. He misses his wife so much. So it was a very interesting read. I'll be honest, it's not my favorite Lorraine Heath ever, but it's very unique, and I'm very glad that I did read it. Because yeah, Lorraine Heath, she pulls out some amazing stories. All right. Then, I have The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I know, bringing back an oldie. This one definitely is more about like the PTSD/trauma we're getting over. And we have our heroine Hannah, who was date raped at a party in high school, and now she's in college, and she is a very successful student. She is a musician, and Garrett Graham is on the hockey team, and he has a plummeting GPA. She thinks he's kind of cocky, and he's a popular jerk, and he thinks she's very feisty, and he needs her to be his tutor, and she does not want to be his tutor. And he notices that there's this guy that she's interested in, and he says, well, I will help you get a date with him if you'll be my tutor. So that's the deal that they make. But the more that he gets to know her, he finds out about her past, and he becomes kind of like her sex tutor to help her get past some of her trauma. I mean, there's a reason why this book stands the test of time, because it's delightful and a bit lighter in a way. I mean, it's still dark because of what happened to her, but it's a bit lighter in a way than some of these other ones we're talking about. Then we have a very dark contemporary, and that is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. This one is definitely the PTSD route. This book actually starts with a heroine and her sister's fiance getting kidnapped by a serial killer. And this serial killer ties them in a basement and does horrible things to them. And so this book deals with what they're living through then and what it's like for them after days of torture and abuse, what it does to them. And our heroine is, I mean, they definitely both are, but it really focuses on what our heroine is dealing with afterwards and how she's coping with it and not coping with it. There definitely are suicide attempt in this book. I would have to say that, obviously, as well as there is rape and other trauma involved with that. But I'd be remiss if I did a Scarred Heroines video and didn't mention this one. Then I have A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Milla Vane. This one has a heroine who is tough as fucking nails, but she is definitely scarred. We have our heroine Yvonne, who has been held captive and abused by her father her entire life. Her and her mother were locked in a tower for reasons, and our heroine made a desperate attempt to make contact with leaders from a different country, and this couple, who's the king and queen, they were the father of Maddox. And so Maddox, he comes home from raiding, because this is a barbarian kind of love story. He comes home from raiding to find out that his parents had been killed, and that it is the fault of this woman Yvonne, who had written a letter to them. Of course, he doesn't know the full story of what's happened to Yvonne and everything that's going on, but he decides that since he cannot retaliate against the king, who, is Yvonne's father, who's been super abusive to her, he will kidnap and kill her. But when he intercepts the caravan that is moving even, he is convinced by her that actually the best revenge you could get against my father is if you married me, because then you become the king, because the line will pass, it passes through the female line, and that's why my father had been abusing my mother and me, is because he wanted the control. So there's that setup. Our heroine, the type of abuse that she received from her father. She has had her knee shattered when she tried to run away. She has had fingers removed from her hands so that she could not do archery. She's been beaten and starved and malnourished. She definitely has like sallow skin. She is sickly in the beginning of this. She is just so beaten down. But the fire inside of this woman is greater than this barbarian king. It is fucking amazing. This heroine is still in the top seat. No one has unseated her. There have been some people who have been near her level, but no one has unseated Yvonne. And people who don't like this book, I don't understand you. I don't understand you. But if you love this book, you know what I'm talking about. Then I have one that I don't even care I'm putting up here, and I'm putting up Manacled by SenLinYu, and this is a Hermione fanfic that I read at the very beginning of January. It still lives in my head rent-free. I will soon have a bound copy of the fanfiction for my shelves, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait. This is a alternate universe. Voldemort has won. Witches and people with magical blood are being used as surrogates for the wizarding world because the children, there are no more like magical children really being born. And so Voldemort has started this surrogacy program, gifting a surrogate to a wizarding family for them to breed and have an heir. And Hermione, who has been in solitary confinement for 16 months in complete sensory deprivation, is awakened from that to be given to Draco and his wife to be bred by them. And yep, that's the beginning. So our heroine, Hermione, is shackled. She's manacled, so her magic is dulled and given to Draco. And that's all that I'm going to say to start. So you can just imagine the scar that's there. You can find this fanfiction on Archive of Our Own. Just search for Manacled. It'll come up. You can download it to a Kindle or your phone. It is between 1,000 and 1,300 pages, depending on which version or like how it downloads for you. And I don't regret reading this book for a single second. It's one of the best books that I've ever written or read. I did not write it, that I've ever read. But Hermione, when you find out like what has brought them to the points that they're at and what they've been through and just like the mental and physical things that they've gone through to get where they are, it's one of the most satisfying happily ever afters that I've ever read. Ever. It's fantastic. Then I also want to mention Sing Me to Sleep by R.M. Virtues. So this is a book I actually read for the Romance Takeover readathon, but it came out around, like Halloween time last year, and it is a sleep paralysis demon. But our heroine, the reason why she is seeing this demon is she's having horrible PTSD for when someone broke into her home, and I believe, did her father die because of it? Is that what happened? I don't know, but she has horrible trauma. And this sleep paralysis demon actually helps her work through it. So there are a lot of like triggers for this one, but honestly, most of the triggers are because like it's very spicy. So there's very kinky things that happen, lots of different kinds of kinky things. He has a tail and a tongue, and at one point we're using both his dick, his tongue, and his tail all at the same time, and it's very delightful. This book, I'll be honest, like, it's dark, but it wasn't as dark as I was expecting. It's mostly because it's really kinky. And yeah, our heroine has a lot to deal with. And then the last one I want to mention, and this is actually I believe I used this book for the Scarred Hero as well, but that is Relentless Hunter by Maggie Cole. I know, it's tough when I share this one because this is book 10 in the Mafia War series, and you really can't just jump to this book, but I don't care. I want to talk about it. I love the Mafia Wars so much that I don't care. But our heroine in this one, I talked about the hero Finn last time, but Brenna, she has been in domestic slavery for the last like 15 years. She is kidnapped and sold as a sex slave to this rich like billionaire, and is like kept as his mistress in his home with his wife and daughter. And she forcibly had plastic surgery done to her. He gets Botox under her. He's given her breast enhancements. He has had her like waxed and literally he treats her like his doll, and has done all these changes to her body. And I know that that is like a different way to look at like a scarred heroine, but these were physical. I don't even want to call them enhancements because they weren't enhancements to her, like not for her. She has been physically like altered against her will and kept in this like slave state for years. And when her man is able to get her back and have her back again, and the peace that they're able to find in each other is so beautiful. Like, it's so excellent. Maggie Cole is brilliant. It's beautiful. But Brenna and Finn, they really go through it. And I remember like reading Brenna's POVs and just her feeling like such an alien in her body, because this sick man who owns her wanted her tits to be bigger, or wanted her butt to be tighter, wanted her to look a specific way. And then for her to be scorned by, you know, his wife, who it's not like Brenna had any choice to be there or to be treated this way, you know? So that's like a sad note to end on, but this was Scarred Heroines. So there we go. Thank you to my channel members for sponsoring this video, and thank you if you watched this. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe. I have a playlist of my recommendations that has over 160 different recommendation videos. If there's a recommendation that you're looking for, I've probably made a video about it. Just saying. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.